Sunday. Welcome to Kandid Konversations with Miss Krystal, and I'm your host, Miss Krystal. Thanks so much for deciding to spend some of your Sunday with me. Hope you had a good meal. Hope you had a wonderful service. And now it's time for us to get candid. Well, here on Kandid Konversations with Miss Krystal, we do real talk meets real transformation. And I want to thank everyone who tuned in last week for my second episode with Dasha and Aaron Barber. Let me tell you, this is what community looks like. You all answered the call and you all have been supporting the restaurant. And so I want to thank you so much for truly, again, showing what community looks like and just coming to their support. And I tell you, they say that a lot of you guys have been coming in and just want to thank you all so much for answering that call. And again, thanks so much to Dasha and Aaron Barber. All right, well, let's get to it. It's time for us to get candid. Tonight, we're going to be tackling a subject that weighs heavy on the hearts of so many people in our community. And I'm talking all about life after a felony conviction. Now, we've heard the phrase, if you do the crime, you're going to do the time. But what about after that time is served? Can a person ever truly be free from their past? Well, for the first time in our nation's history, the highest office in the land is occupied by someone with a felony conviction. And it begs the question, if the presidency isn't off limits to a convicted felon, why are so many doors still slammed shut for those who have paid their debt to society? Well, tonight we are honored to welcome Kemnejer, Tank Alexander, and his story is raw and real. As a teenager, over 30 years later, still fighting the invisible chains of his past. And this conversation isn't just about Tank, it's about justice, redemption, and the power of a second chance. So without further ado, could you give a warm Kandid Konversations welcome to our very special guest, Mr. Tank. Hey, Tank.
Hi, how are you, Miss Krystal?
I'm doing very well. And you know what? We get candid here on Kandid Konversations with Miss Krystal. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, Tank. And we said that obviously the enemy is mad that you're getting ready to share your story.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I definitely know that you're going to touch the hearts of all of our viewers. So we kept pushing through.
Yes, we did. And we were successful.
And we were successful. First off, how do you pronounce your first name? Kemnejer?
No, ma'am, it's Kemnejer.
Kemnejer. What does that mean?
Kemnejer. It means king.
I love that. I love that. Hey, and we have got a good kingly story from you. But real quick, interesting nickname, Tank. And, and I know a lot of people, when they hear the name Tank, we think of the singer. But where does your name Tank come from? Because the artist says that he used to be in the service. And so it kind of, like army tanks. But where's your tank come from?
Well, mine came from high school playing football. And, they give me that ball. I run through that line. I run through them like a tank. So my coach just always said, boy, you run through them like a tank. And every time when they come in, when we get in the huddle, they'll say, okay, we're going to run tank. That's what they'll say. When we in the huddle, they'll say, we're going to run tank. So every time, then it was like tank.
So thank you so much for agreeing to share your truth. We understand that it's not easy, but we understand that often our stories will be a guidebook for someone else that might be following behind us. So let's start from the very beginning. We want you to take us back to Detroit, because from what I'm understanding, you're from Detroit, Michigan.
Yes,
so tell us a little bit what'd you say?
Yes, ma'am. Born and raised.
Born and raised. So
yes,
take us back to your childhood days there in Detroit, Michigan, and what led you to the streets at a young age?
It was a constant fight because I was a little intelligent. So it was a constant fight with my grandmother and the streets, and my grandmother and the streets eventually won. School wasn't so interesting to me anymore because I wanted some money. So I thought, just like every other youngster, I'm going to go ahead and take the easy route, and I'm going to try to sell some dope. I just want to sell some dope to get some money. And that was the beginning of the end for me.
Wow. So can you walk us through the day that changed your life forever? you were 17 years old, as
Yes.
you told me the story a little bit before,
Yes.
but you didn't quite finish high school. You felt like the streets were calling. And so
Yeah.
here we are, 17 years old. You had been running the streets by that time. How many years were you in the game?
Well, to be honest, my brother moved to California when I was about 13. He was about
Mhm.
15. So I say about 4 years I was running wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had a daughter. I had a child when I was 17, and my
Mhm.
dad, my neighbors, which was like my mentors, just all of the older guys mainly. You know, it's a female or two, but mainly all the older guys is trying to be a man now, son. Trying to be a
Yeah.
man now, son. So I just opted out. I was working in the restaurant business, cooking and washing dishes, but that wasn't enough money, so I wanted to try something different, which was a
Wow.
bad mistake. Yes.
Wow. So take us back to the day that changed your life forever at 17.
Yes, ma'am. Well, um, it's a little additive to it. I can't just say, well, this changed it. Well, it was just poor decision making. And we had some people that was around us that shouldn't have not have been around us as young guys. They were older
Mhm.
people, and they robbed us for about $11,000 in cash and
Wow.
about 9 ounces of drugs. And we were young, so
$11,000. That was a lot of money back. That was a lot of money now, but I could only
man.
imagine that was a lot of money.
And then you got someone to answer to. It's
Yeah.
not ours. We're just
Yeah.
what you call lieutenants.
Yeah.
And so we have to all of that. All we got to pass to the big dude in Detroit. And once he got word of we didn't have what we were supposed to have anymore, he said, "Okay, well I'm coming down there and I'm coming to handle that. Y'all better handle that before I get there." So what that meant to me as a 17-year-old child in this game that you hear about in the streets, you watch all these movies, and you thinking, "Oh man, he's gonna kill us." Well,
Yeah.
let's go. Let's go do what we got to do. Let's go get this money back for this dude get down here and do what he got to do, and that led to that poor decision making that I was talking about a minute ago. We did a little too much as far as being aggressive, and it landed me in prison for 10 years.
Wow. 17 years old when you were sentenced. Talk about first off appearing in court and then getting that sentencing because you said that you were given what 10 to 25 years.
No, it was actual 7 to 25 years in
7 to
Ohio.
20.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. In Ohio, that's what they call a tail. The 25 years is a tail. So they uh, have you go to the parole board to see about your eligibility to be released within, the 7 to 25 years. So I went to the parole board after 5.5 years, and they gave me an additional 10 years and 8 months at the parole board, and that was in 1999. So of course, the Lord came through.
Yeah. Well, take
God,
before we get to that though, I'm really eager to just really curious to see what you felt like in that moment though, being 17 years old and hearing that you face 7 to 25 years in prison. I mean,
I didn't think that I would ever be free again.
yeah.
Honestly, 7 to 25 years is like, you 17, you just had a baby, you out of town, you don't have a lawyer, you don't have family, you're just you,
Yeah.
and you going through this by yourself, and you trying to be a man because you say you're a man, but you're really not a man, and it's hard because you don't have a lawyer's advice, you don't have your family's advice. I didn't have nobody. Like when I left home, I was with my grandma, and so I have nobody to call on, nobody to call home to, nobody to write to, or nothing. So that was horrible. It was horrible. But once I went to prison, it was an enlightenment because I furthered my education. I wound up getting my GED while I was there. I went there and got a floor apprenticeship. I went through all kinds of programs, just programming myself. So it helped out for the better, which I think that if I wouldn't have went, then maybe my life would have been ended sooner.
Wow. I mean, what a mature response. That's, you're speaking from sounding like a very wise man because I guess a lot of people would probably not have that same response in which 10 years of because you ended up serving 10 years, 10
Yes, ma'am.
years of your life, but you decided to make the best of that time while you were there. You shared a little bit about your story with me off air, but you talked about how one of your co-defendants was up for parole. He
Yes.
was able to get it. You
Yes.
were denied, but
Yes.
the story that you told me, it gave me goosebumps though,
Yes,
because
ma'am.
you knew that
I
your
was going home.
time was coming. So walk the viewers through
Okay.
that moment.
I got you. I got you, Miss Crystals. Okay. So look, I was at a place called Belmont Correctional Institution for about 7.5, maybe 8 years of my incarceration period. And it's 8 hours away from Detroit. So I couldn't get a visit, and all of that. So I did a hardship to Lima Correctional Institution, which is only 2 hours away. And at that place was my co-defendant. My co-defendant was there the same amount of time that I was at the other place. And upon arriving there, I learned that he had got a parole and he was getting ready to go home. And I'm like, well, no, we can't be talking about the same person because there ain't no way that he's getting ready to go home. And the parole board just gave me 10 years and 8 months of flop.
Wow.
And when I saw him, I said, hey, Mike, hey, what's going on, man? Like, hey, how'd you get a parole? He's like, I don't know, man. He said, man, sorry, man, what I'm saying? I got to go. I'm like, what? Just think about it. My daughter died when I was in the county. The
Your what?
same,
Your daughter
yes,
died? Wow.
yes, yes, the same child that I was trying to be a man for. So it makes you think about all the things that you was trying to do something for. It was all in vain. Trying to be a man was in vain. Trying to be a dad was in vain. Trying to be a hustler was in vain. All of it was in vain because none of those wasn't who I was. I was pushing to be something further than what my actual time meant for me to be. That's all. And my co-defendant went home. Uh, he went home, and I'm writing letters to a parole board, oversight committees. I'm writing to governors. I'm writing everybody because I didn't feel like that was fair because we are charged with the same exact crime. And how can this man only do 8 years on our bid, and they give me an additional 10 years and 8 months, which totally behooved me from the beginning to the end of it. And then I wound up going to segregation in that place that I was in. It was Lima Correctional Institution, and you guys can reference this. They say that it's one of the most haunted places in Ohio, period. Because back in the days, there used to be like a mental institution, and they used to take those women and men out into the public and sell them. And it was a whole big thing back in the days. I don't know what year it was, but you can reference it. So it was been told that it was a lot of those spirits was still inside of this building.
Whoa.
And I was in the hole because I had tried to steal some hamburger meat out the chow hall.
Oh
And
my.
yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do when you're in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't know how to read a Bible, Miss Crystal. And one day I was reluctant to talk with my mother on the phone. And she said, baby, make sure you read your Bible, make sure you pray. And I was like, well, mama, I don't even know how to read the Bible.
Wow.
She's like, where you
How
going?
old were you at this time?
At that time, let me see, 26.
So you had literally you had went from being a teenager to a man there in prison. Wow.
Yes, yes. And the
Wow.
transition was real because I had an ear that it seemed like other youngsters didn't have. I wanted to hear that OG say, man, sit down, man, listen what I gotta say to you. Hey
Yeah.
man, don't do that like that, man. Hey man, you're gonna do a long time, man. You keep doing it like that. And
Yeah.
at first I was a hothead. I was from another state and I'm down here. I don't know these guys. And I was fighting a lot and just crazy. But not to get off subject.
I got you off subject. I'm sorry.
It's
Let's go
okay.
back to the Bible. Your
It's
mom
okay.
told you to make sure you read your Bible. And you were
Yes.
saying at this time,
I
you was
didn't.
like, you didn't know how to read the
I
Bible.
didn't. I really
Mhm.
I didn't even know how to pray. She
Yeah.
had to teach me how to pray. I just thought, just praying was that. Well, she told me that you have to pray for others first and then
Wow.
pray for yourself. So I learned how to pray. And then she taught me how to read the Bible. She said, Shay, Just pray before you open your Bible. And when you open your Bible, just keep your eyes closed and open it up and let your fingers get you to your scripture. She said the Lord gonna point you in the right direction. Just
Yeah.
trust the Lord. And
Yeah.
upon reading my Bible while I was in confinement, every scripture that I read said something about being freed from bondage,
Mm.
something about getting let go.
Yeah.
Everything that I read. So I wrote a poem, Miss Crystal, and I can't tell you what it said to this day, but I can tell you that I wrote it halfway asleep. And the poem was talking about me being out free with my nieces and my nephews. It was only two nieces and a nephew at the time, and my daughter had already passed, of course. And all I wanted to do was just be this uncle because I couldn't be this dad anymore. And so part of my poem was dedicated to my nieces and my nephew. And I went to sleep and I woke back up, Miss Crystal, and God told me, "You getting out of here.
Wow.
You going home." And any other time, you may want to tell yourself something like that, or you may want to tell yourself, "Hey, these lights ain't turned off. They're gonna turn back on when I open my eyes." You want to believe when you hear it in your brain, you want to believe it. But sometimes you just overlook it. Well, this time was that one time, but I knew that wasn't my voice.
Wow.
I knew that that wasn't something that I conjured up in my own brain because I knew that I had just caught 10 years and 8 month flop at the parole board. So I knew it was no chances of me going home on my own recognizance, you know. So when I got out the hole, I started to claim it. I was walking down the hall and my counselor stepped out the hallway and he said, "Mr. Alexander, I need to see you in my office." And in the hallway, we're not supposed to smoke. And I was smoking. So I thought he caught me smoking. I was like, "Man, hey, man, hey, man, have me." He said, "No, I see you, Miss Alexander. Come on down to my office." And when I went to his office, he said, "You've been called up for a recall and rescind hearing." And I said, "Recall and rescind?" I said, "Well, what is that?" I didn't know what the word rescind meant at the time. And rescind means to take away. I didn't know that. When he told me that, I said, "So they're going to take time away?" He said, "Well, they could." I went to the parole board that very next month and they gave me parole and I got out 2 months later.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm talking about the people had just gave me 10 years and 8 months flop. There's no way I was supposed to get out. But God,
Come on. You giving me goosebumps. You're really giving me goosebumps
I'm telling you,
for you
God, he's
to
so, yes,
so
ma'am.
and so I'm sure that you felt as if you were going to be released and you were going to be full of purpose and life was just going to be just a boundless stream of opportunities. But
Yes,
talk about some of the hardest challenges and obstacles and roadblocks you
yes, ma'am.
faced
Well,
upon
well,
being
once
released.
once I was released, of course, you're right. I thought that, hey, this is it. It's time for me to show my worth as a man. It's time for me to show my education that I've got since I've been here. I got these two diplomas, and I'm ready. And I had to come out into a halfway house, of course. They don't feel like, people coming from prison is rehabilitated enough. So they have to have these strings on you so you can't go that far. You know how like you got your dog and you won't let him go that far? That's what they put on us, a little leash. And every job that I went for, I didn't get every single one. So everybody said you got to go to a temp service. Mind you, I was never an adult before I left the street, so I didn't know anything about the temp service and all of that. I didn't know nothing about that. I didn't know nothing about a real job because I had never had one. My last job was delivering newspapers. So I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about, going filling out an application and,
Yeah.
doing all that. I didn't know nothing about none of
Because
that.
you were 17 when you got
Yes,
locked up, a
yes,
teenager
and
coming out a
27.
man.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
So I needed a lot of help, which wasn't provided for me. And I needed a lot of guidance, which wasn't there either. So everything again was on my own, but this time I had God with me. See, the first time I didn't have God with me. So I never gave up, Miss Crystal. I never gave up. To this day, I still never gave up because I know success for me. is right here in front of me. Right now this is success. I get to tell people, what happened with me, and and how they can feel, they way through if they need to, because I felt my way through, and I see what it feels like, and it's real.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but let's make no mistake about it that you coming out, and because you had upon your release, you have a felony on your record.
First of all, I want to say that no felony is created equal.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that I want to say. And it was a
I
wise
love
person.
that.
A wise person said that to me, and I absolutely put that into my Rolodex. But I want to say,
Not
as
all
far as
felonies are created equal. I
not
love
all
that.
felonies are created equal. So what that means is, you have a guy, and and I want for people to understand that, because you're gonna have some people say, well, I got a felony and I'm a supervisor. I got a felony and I'll drive forklifts. I got a felony and okay, that's fine. But do you have kidnapping and abduction? You don't. Okay. So that's the part that does it for me. Every time that they run my background and say, okay, we're going to give this guy this job. Let's just say, for example, I was working at a place for 89 days. The 88th day, the supervisor came to me, said, man, hey, man, we love the way you work, your attendance record, all of that. I'm like, man, I want to work for y'all so bad. I'm so excited. I was driving forklifts. And he said, well, go ahead and put in your application and I'm gonna pull it, and we can get you on in here, and we get you on off the temp service, and we get you some more money. I was like, awesome, bet. This was the first time I didn't know that, Tank, this ain't what you do. But I did it. I filled out all the application. I didn't lie. I told them, yeah, I've been convicted of a felony and all of this stuff. And I went ahead and submitted it. I guess they pulled it that day, because the very next day I was at work. I was pulling the order. I was driving the forklift. The supervisor was at the end of the hallway. He said, hey, I need to talk to you for a second. I was like, okay, well, let me finish this. She said, no, stop doing that and come talk
Oh,
to me right now. I was like, whoa, what I do, sir? What's going on? He said, I'm sorry, but we have to let you go. I'm like, you the same person that told me yesterday to put in my application and you love my work ethics and all of that. He said, but we found something on your record, and we can't even have you in the building. I said,
whoa.
what? I said, man, I was 17 years old, man, when I caught that case, man. And then if you really look into the in depths of it, I didn't do nothing. I was just there. But the law don't care. The law doesn't care at all. The law doesn't care. If you if you're in the commission of a felony around somebody, you didn't call the police, hey, well, you going to jail too.
Let me
And
ask you, Tank, how many times did that happen to you? And I'm sure that had to be heartbreaking. And
yes,
what
well, it happened a number of times. That time right there was the first time, and that was back in 2006. So just imagine, this is 2025. That has happened a lot. I still don't have a stable job. I've only had one stable job since I've been free. Actually, when I went back to prison for the same thing, for the registration, for 2 years, actually, after I got out. So I went back in 2007 and I got out in 2009. So with that, every job that I applied for, it was right there fresh. It seemed like this just happened. Like, you could look my name up and it'll say kidnapping, abduction, and felonious assault. Like, are y'all serious? This happened in 1994.
Yeah, for the first time in this nation's history, the sitting president of the United States of America is a convicted felon. And so, do you think this moment in history will change how society views people with records? Do you
Honestly,
think that it's only fair for people to uh look back and reassess on how felon people that have felonies are treated?
totally unfair. Totally unfair. And it's not even the extent of the actual felony. They don't even care, really. Like, you have some people who slip through the cracks and still get those jobs. And then you have other people who it ain't no cracks. They just don't get the job. And then you got these people who are already in position, go and create a heinous crime, worse than my crime, of course, and still be able to sit in position and people still get to respect him the same way and he still gets the same amount of, liberation. That's unfair. When you got a guy like me who I've never given up on myself. I've never given up on society either, even though society's turned their back on me plenty of times. I still never gave up because I knew that there was some success for me coming in the future if I stay hard on it.
Wow.
And you got a guy that's in a position to change people's lives. I can
What's
only
the
change.
conversation? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
was gonna say I can only change my own. This guy can
Yeah.
change. This guy can even change that. So that's not fair. No, it's not. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But what's the conversation been like with, have you had a conversation with anyone else that has a felony on the record?
Yes.
And what's that conversation like?
Well, it's like I had a friend of mine who actually said, "Hey, man, that's good for us because it opens the door and gives more opportunity to convicted felons to be able to get these jobs." I said, "But no one's going to reference that. No one's going to reference that. No one's going to say, okay, well, since he got this job, he got 35 felonies. You only got one. We're going to go ahead and give you." No, it's not going to happen. It's still going to be the same way. Nothing's going to change. That's not. It's like we when my friend said, "Hey man, this is opportunity for us," but it's not. It's not.
Wow.
Nothing's going to change. The system is set up to make you fail. The system is set up to make you say, "You know what? I'm done with this. I'm going to the streets. I can't do this with this job, with this legal business." That's what it's set up. That's how the system is set up. Once you're in it, they say that you can't never get out, but that's not true neither. If you got God, the Lord kept me and kept me safe ever since 2009. I've been free.
And I will. I'm in awe.
So many people leave the drug game and become entrepreneurs and go further into that next stage and they get up there and perform. Well, guess what, Miss Crystal? I'm ready to perform as well. And I'm not gonna stop performing. I'm talking about till the music stop. I'm still gonna be going a cappella. you know.
Well, while
Yes.
you've got the mic in your hand and while you're ready to take that stage, you've got the
Hmm.
stage right now. I want you to
Yes,
speak
ma'am.
to the employers. I want you to speak to the lawmakers. I want you to speak to anyone in a position of power to create change. What would be your message to them tonight?
Well, I would like for that message to be, the employers and the lawmakers. I would like for them to understand that, people are going to make mistakes, and that's why they're called mistakes, just like accidents. That's why they're called accidents. People are going to make mistakes, and you can't just take that and make that be a dictation of who that person is. A mistake can't define me. A mistake can't define you. Only thing that can define you is the definition of who you are. That's it. So let me make my mistake, Mr. Employer, and go ahead and hire me. Keep me on with your company because I'm gonna work hard for you. I'm gonna do my best because I'm so enthused and I'm empathetic. Thank you. And I'm gonna show you this with my work ethic. But instead, since I'm a convicted felon, you don't want me to work here. For what reason? Do you think I'm going to commit a felony against you? I haven't done it yet.
Well, you've got their ear right now. Tell them what kind of worker you are and why you would be an asset to their company.
Well, I'm a team player. I'm a team player. I love to see everything run on a nice smooth basis, almost like a sewing machine. So if I was a part of your company today, sir, I'm sure that I can if I can't do nothing else, I can bring good morning smiles to everybody every morning.
Tank, we want to thank you so much for sharing your
No,
story.
no, no, please, 1,000 pardons. That means pardon me 1,000 times. I want to thank you for the opportunity to even just let me speak. I want to thank you for even just being my friend enough to listen to me. See, like right now, only reason why I'm not crying is because I keep on batting them down. Y'all not seeing me. I keep on doing this because I got them in the corner of my eyes because this is real. You know, everything that I'm saying to you guys. So I would love to be
Absolutely.
back. If y'all have me
I know,
back, I'm
y'all. You
coming.
can't. We can't get him to stop. I think it's definitely. I need a co-host sometimes. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for joining
Yes,
us.
ma'am. God.
All right. God bless you as well. Tank, thank you so much. How inspiring is that? Hey, I told you this is Kandid Conversations, and we are speaking the truth over here. And so I want to thank Tank so much for taking the time to just share his story. Tank's story is one of accountability, resilience, and the relentless fight for a second chance. Now, his past may be a chapter, but it should not be his entire story. Did you hear that? His past may be a chapter, but that should not be his entire story. So here's my call to you. If you are watching, you've heard his story. You heard this story of this guy who made some mistakes as a kid. He served his time and now he's ready to move on with the rest of his life. If you're an employer, a policymaker, or someone with the power to create opportunities, I challenge you to step forward. Tank isn't alone. He represents countless others who are more than their mistakes. And that's the purpose of this show. The purpose of this show is to bring stories to light, but not only people just sharing their stories, but people that hear the stories. If there's something you can do to help make a difference in their lives, let's do it, right? That's what we're called to do. Well, thank you for joining me on my third show. Yes, I am counting it. And I am just absolutely having the time of my life. And just like that, another episode of Kandid Conversations is done. But hey, the conversation does not have to end there. If you're watching me on YouTube, please do me a favor, subscribe to my channel, give me a like. If you are watching on Facebook, please give my page a like. I appreciate all the love and support, all the shares, and please continue to lift your girl up. I'm continuing to be obedient, continuing to move forward on my journey, and I could not do it without each and every one of you. So just want to tell you, thank you so much for your love and your report. And just remember, your story is not just yours, it's someone else's survival guide. And standing tall in our truth. And guess what? Hope looks good on you. Thank you so much. See you next week. Bye.